team fighting skills. So they're a lot different than the more skirmish-oriented playmaking style of a team like Starhorn Royal Club. So there's a lot of diversity now in strategy in the Chinese scene that we're seeing.
And honestly, I still think, though, that Samsung White has a bit of an edge here because I think they match everywhere so darn well. Now, the one thing Edward does have, though, is Name, an incredibly strong AD carry, and him and FCZF are going to do whatever they can in the duo lane. But I really, really want to see how that matches up against Imp and Mata, because those guys are incredible as well. If Edward wins, Name goes off. Whether Name plays an aggressive early game laner to bully, or he gets hyper-fed on someone like Kog'Maw, we have to see.
Yeah, we will find it. I'm happy you bring up Samsung White. They, of course, the number 2 seed from Korea. We keep saying this. We will continue saying it. Many view them as the strongest team in their region. This is the second trip to Worlds. Last year they played as Samsung Ozone, but they have made a notable change. It is a new mid laner, and they appear to be significantly stronger than last year.
Yeah, Pawn is a very solid mid lane player, and I think that this roster swap, one of the coaches said in an interview a while back that switching Pawn and Dade, the intention was to get both teams to Worlds. He was a little bit of a more rookie player at the time, and so he kind of fell in line behind the shot calling from Dandy and Mata, the more playmaking players, whereas Dade fit very nicely into Blue as a playmaking mid laner, and that kind of gave Blue the spark they needed to be successful.
Yeah, and of course, we're going to talk about the jungle. Dandy, probably the strongest jungler here at the tournament. Crumbs, as a jungler yourself, talk to me about what your thoughts on the player.
Now, Dandy has been in the scene for quite a while, and he's been consistent all throughout. He's been playing Lee Sin, Evelynn, Elise, all the meta champions for a while, and Korea is one of the few regions that's able to bring out Rengar as well. So he's got that in his champion pool, and he's the only player in the entire world that's still playing Evelynn after she got nerfed, which adds quite a bit of a surprise factor.
I just want to see how you or Unstoppable holds up against Pawn, because I think that matchup is going to be very slanted, and as Crum said, Dandy, if it's not already slanted, then Dandy will slant it for them. And then in the bot lane, yeah, sure, Nami is a really good AD carry, but Mata is just complete ranks above SSW, so it's going to be really tough for EDG to just outmatch their enemies, because in roll for roll, or lane for lane at least, they're at least tied, if not better.
I do think we are underselling Clear Love a little bit, though. He has incredibly high kill participation. He actually ganks incredibly well, and I know Dandy's a player who likes to get in his opponent's head and try to understand what his opponent is going to do. Maybe that happens here, but I don't want to count out Clear Love. I think he can also get his lanes going and get that early game that I think Edward needs to get here.
Well, I like the fact we've got a little bit of differing opinions on the players. Let's see if it actually shows true in the predictions. Wouldn't be an analyst desk without that prediction game, so I'm going to be putting these guys on the spot, and I want to know legitimately who you think will be winning this matchup. Let's run this one down the line. Crepo, who's going away with the W?
Yeah, pretty much what I said already. Like, White's gonna win this. I think lane for lane, as I said before, they're gonna outclass their opponents. And then even in terms of just macro level strategy, their vision control will be better. Edward Kamen's had decent vision control, but I mean, White is just, yeah, it's White. You know, they're gonna win this.
Crumbs?
I think White is gonna win it as well. You know, when it comes to the methodical Korean playstyle compared to a little bit more chaotic, even though EDG is not that chaotic, to the chaotic Chinese style, I pick the brain over the brawn.
Yeah.
Or the brawn.
Yes.
Monte Cristo.
How do I follow that up? No, I got to go with Samsung White as well. I do think EDG is a very strong team, and because if both teams make it out, they'll be placed on opposite sides of the bracket. We're looking at a possible preview of the World Finals here as well, potentially.
Well, we'll find out. Freak, final thoughts.
So I definitely think Samsung White is going to win this game. I agree with kind of all the comments here where they seem to be a little bit better everywhere, but sometimes the X factor comes in, and you know Edward could make that play. But yes, down the line, I think Samsung White is better strategically and a little bit better in every single role.
Well, you guys at home have heard what our analysts are picking. Let's see who you chose to come away with a victory in this first game. Over on lolesports.com, 80% of you say that Samsung White will take the first win. It's heavy favorites for sure. Now, despite the fact Edward Gaming is heading into Worlds as the #1 team from China, they are their own biggest critics as they prepare for the competition.
到了 EDG 也没算进步吧，随着版本变化，然后自己打法也有一些不同。
这个赛季表现呢，整体来说一般嘛。
最近的一段时间自己打的都很差，这就是最近跟皇族的那一盘吧。我想站一个很容易杀到 UZI 的位置，就被对面的 Zero 勾到了，随时勾到了，被他盲勾，然后直接秒了那波团战输了，然后就导致整盘都输掉了。
我觉得转折点有2个吧，第一个是 RET 上，就第一个杯赛上嘛，然后打赢了 OMG， 还有一个就是 打 W1 吧。其实，在打完 W1 之后的状态一直都不是特别好，也算是一个下降的一个转折吧。
每输掉比赛，大家都会回去看视频，然后总结，大家会去积极的去沟通。
其实我们队伍现在关键问题还是要交流吧，关键不停地打训练赛，然后通过训练赛来练习一下自己队友和队友之间的默契。
训练的话，因为韩服之前的版本比国服快嘛，现在国服也跟上了嘛，然后就会先去研究一些视频和必须的顺序和选择，然后再根据队伍队员的打法和性格、队伍的风格，然后筛选一些英雄和一些打法的元素，然后放在训练赛中。
我们队伍和韩国队伍也训练的挺多的，至少大家打韩国队是心理上是没什么压力的。
今年韩国出现的3个队伍还都是非常强的吧。S4 真正拉开战幕的时候，如何能够在各个队伍集结在一起的时候，找到合适的训练对手，然后同时锻炼队伍、提升队伍，然后又能达到战术上的保密，也是非常重要的。
感觉说起来，如果碰到3星也不是没有赢的机会，感觉也能赢。
挺想和那个韩国的 SSW 打一打。
我们当然希望就是说队伍能够有一个比较好的一个成绩嘛。
我们再次站在 S4的舞台上，我们的目标就是冠军。
It's great hearing a team talk about their own practice mentality and focus. And this is a squad in particular that came out quite openly and said, we're going to focus on some of the other teams in our group a little bit less than Samsung White because they want to make playoffs.
Right. I actually think this is actually very smart from Edward Gaming, knowing their sort of group structure where they've got 2 very big favorites. They're happy taking just top 2, making sure they can beat AHQ and Dark Passage, which you don't want to overlook, and then looking at the Group B teams, making sure you're okay for the quarterfinals as well. I think it's a very smart choice. So while they won't look necessarily incredible against White because they're not trying to beat them necessarily, they're going to go far in this tournament.
Well, right. I mean, that's who you don't. If they have any strategies prepared for Samsung White, because of their opposite sides of the bracket when they exit the group, they can save any kind of secrets that they have for later on down the road if they're very confident in beating up on the kind of bottom 2 teams in this group.
Do you think perhaps that White might try to do the same thing, and then they'd be thinking, well, we can just make it out of the top 2, not show our full strength, and then perhaps try to go for that second seed and get an easier time?
That means we're gonna see a blitzcrank.
Well, Crumbs, how difficult is it really to hold back? I mean, we always talk about these pocket picks, these, weird and wonderful strategies, but from a playstyle perspective, can you really, control on the world stage and, not give it your all?
I think maybe once you're at that incredible high level of skill, you're able to do it. But honestly, when these guys are up there, they're not really thinking. They're just playing instinctively, right? They already know exactly what to do. So holding back on something that's pretty much hardwired into how you work is pretty difficult.
But I mean, there's a good consensus of what the metagame is right now. They can just play standard metagame and just duke it out against each other and see where their flaws are. That doesn't mean they don't have to reveal any new strategies, any new picks, because there's plenty of champions that are just overly played everywhere. And I think that's what we're going to see the first game.
Well, we are about to find out. Thank you very much, guys. We're going to hand things over to the casters to take us into the game between the top team from China versus the perceived top team from Korea. Guys, take it away.
Thank you very much, Trevor, and let's check out the starting lineups as we get right into this match. I think we're all ready here. We've been waiting an entire season to get to this. On the blue side, it's LPL's Edward Gaming. In the top lane, it is Koro. Jungling is going to be Clear Love. In mid, it's Yu for Unstoppable. AD carry is Name, and supporting him is FZZF.
And over on the red side, representing Korea as the champions, it is, of course, Samsung White. In the top lane, making a return is Looper. Dandy is in the jungle, Pawn in the mid lane, Imp is the AD carry, and Mata on support.
And the biggest thing that I noticed when prepping for these 2 teams is how they don't actually share very similar champion pools. They're actually much different than many teams here. The jungle in particular, Jarvan the 4 for Clear Love is actually by far and away his most picked. Obviously the Rengar is a shared pick because it was banned heavily against EDG and it's the main pick for Danny. But outside of that, the other roles don't have many overlapping champions as well as far as their main roles.
Yeah, and speaking of bans, of course, you got to look towards EDG. Banned Yasuo 31 times throughout the summer and the playoffs. Of course, that is against a lot of Chinese mid laners. Yasuo is a big threat there. Pawn, not so much.
Exactly. It's kind of the wrong Samsung if you're looking for a Yasuo player. Pawn and Yu are actually 2 players that are completely versatile in the champions they pick, but they will still trend towards more passive mid laners. Pawn, because he generally just waits for Dandy to set things up, and Yu because he's just a passive player, and that's EDG's strategy. But of course, yet again,
Obviously, the Yasuo getting taken out. EDG liking to play that slow game, so they don't want any Yasuos jumping in on their own engages.
And something we should talk about, obviously, is a big thing, the Twitch ban in there. AD carries, you know, we talked about Name versus Imp. Of course, we heard Monte Cristo talking about it in the preview show. This is a big, big battle. We've got to see which one they're going to go with here.
Where's the Alistair in the Maokai ban is what I'm wondering, because we were thinking that White was probably going to ban those away to keep them away from Koro. Koro doesn't actually play those champions very frequently, at least the Alistair, but that's because it's banned all the time.
Right.
They actually ban it themselves. So good scouting by White there, seeing that Koro and FCZF aren't going to be playing the Alistair, but still, that was a little dicey.
If we do see the Maokai come through, and I think it may well be first pick. It could be an AD carry first pick, but he has got
Janna
5 wins on it. Janna, of course. FCZF did play that throughout the playoffs, and there is the Instalock Maokai. 5 games, 5 wins for Koro.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works out for him.
Absolutely undefeated. But they're trading picks in that sense. I guess there's so much up right now. Remember, there's a Twitch ban. Kog'Maw is still available. I'd expect EDG to take it on this rotation. Zillion is a super, super, super high tier pick for certain teams. And I guess White was able to lock that down.
Looking at that pickup, Clear Love loving Kha'Zix. Dandy takes that right away. Going to be a great pickup for him.
Versatile pick as well, because we don't know whether that's a support or mid lane Zillion. We could see it on Pawn. It has been rising to the prominence, but Name going for it in the bottom lane. It is going to be that Lucian. We thought that may be one of the primary picks for the AD carries, and of course, looks like it's going to be responded with a Tristan.
Yeah, this has blown me away a little bit. Obviously, these are still high-tier picks, but I was expecting a Kog'Maw from EDG. Lucian is very much more about winning the lanes here. And so, all right.
That changes everything.
This changes many things. It's not something Looper has played, but it's something he has been training. It's something that has been coming up huge, especially in Korean solo queue. You see a ton of Rumble playing around. As far as the lane matchup goes, he can't touch a Maokai. He casts so many spells just to keep his overheat going. The Maokai is going to be healing like crazy. But as far as team fight damage goes, it is absolutely off the charts.
And that's exactly what Samsung White loves to do, get into those team fights. They're going to have to try and get past the Oriano. We're going to see a lot of that throughout Worlds. It's going to be picked up by Unstoppable this time in the mid lane. And that Jarvan pickup still coming through for EDG.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about it at the start. It is something that he's very comfortable on. Clear Love, of course. This is the return to the World Championship for Clear Love is here in Season 2. But it does look like it is going to be, well, Nami. We expected to see it a lot earlier in the picks and bans. It's got snuck through all the way to the end for Mata.
Yeah, well, one interesting thing is the team with Name doesn't play Nami very frequently. They usually let the other team get it every time. It would not surprise me if we were able to see the Nami on the other side right here. It fits in well with counter engage, which is what you want against a team like EDG. Even though EDG is a slower, more methodical Chinese team, they still turn it on. When they have Maokai and Jarvan, they're very much about an all-in engage, and if they're running that into a tidal wave plus an equalizer from Rumble, it is a whole bunch of pain.
Great counter coming out from that Samsung White, as you say, within those fights. An EDG #1 team coming out of China, only brought up in February, have pretty much combined a super team, if you will, and have gotten themselves here now to face what people think is the #1 team in the world right now. This is going to be an amazing matchup.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if viewers that are watching and are not sure about the Chinese scene, just basically think of EDG as the alliance that came together back in the start of the spring and suddenly won everything. Of course, Alliance didn't quite do that in the spring, but nevertheless, they have been dominant. They've dominated the Chinese scene. It is this is an official, proper challenge to Samsung White. Samsung White is the team that everybody, honestly, in this tournament perceives as the best team entering, despite the fact they are the #2 seed for Korea.
Yeah, but it's for good reason. Everyone fears them because they play against them in scrims, and they're really the team that doesn't have a major weakness. You can see that with their pick and ban. They can adapt to almost any situation, and here they're going for a lot of counter engage.
Well, let's see if EDG can find weakness on them in the late game as the players load into this one. Let's see how you are voting on this first match of the World Championship. Tweet EDG win or SS win to @LOL Esports. We will be checking in to see where the fan vote stands shortly. Mouthful of words.
And of course, you can see, this is one thing I wanted to notice, actually, going back to the picks, is Dandy. Dandy on Kha'Zix. It's a champion. He only played once throughout the summer of the champions.
It's definitely a takeaway.
But it used to be Rengar. Rengar was on the table.
Yeah, we do have to remember, obviously, that it's been a long time since we've seen these guys play. Rengar is not the same power he was, and Kha'Zix is much more popular.
All right, gentlemen, we are on to the Rift. This is what everybody has been waiting for, and from Group A, we get the top 2 teams to start off the World Championship group stage.
So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. EDG starting out, of course, as the blue team. This is a round-robin group phase. Group A, Group B, Group C, and Group D, of course, will be played over in Singapore. It's all about A and B right now. They will play each other twice, but that will be in 3 days' time. EDG will face the final match, actually, here in Taipei. Will face Samsung White. This is really a big tell. We talked about it, obviously, Monte Cristo and the crew on the analyst deck talked about this is a potential final.
Yeah, it really is. These teams are both incredibly strong. EDG as well. Whether or not they're telling the truth, they said that they're not really preparing for Samsung White in the group stage because they are confident in their ability to make it out regardless, and are getting a head start on preparing for their semi-final or quarterfinal opponents. That's how confident they are in getting out of group. But yeah, this opening right now is fairly passive from both sides.
Nobody wants to give up that first leg. No advantage to either team here as we start. Looking at a little bit of the inventories, normal there as well. So it looks like no tricks up the sleeves here, D-Man.
So I want to get into the Rumble. The Rumble in the top lane. He's obviously up against the Maokai. Maokai's been incredibly strong. We did see SK Telecom pull out Rumble once throughout the qualifiers. Of course, it was the one game they won, was very successful, and of course used to be a champion heavily played in Korea back in Season 3.
Absolutely.
But it's been a long time since we saw this.
I mean, if we even think back to the All-Star game in 2013, we saw PDD's Rumble absolutely wrecking that tournament.
Yeah.
It's not like anyone is shy for Rumble, it's just that he's been gone for quite a long time from the competitive scene, and a player like Looper commanding Rumble actually makes me think he's more of just trying to withstand the lane, obviously make teleport plays, but he's there to counter EDG's playstyle as much as possible and make it difficult to be dived upon in team fights.
And those teleport plays are what brought Looper into the scene last year at Worlds. And if you think about the long range of Equalizer, even if he's late on these teleports, he's still going to be able to participate.
It's going to be such an amazing Worlds. This is such a great first game because remember, this Samsung White team has 4 out of 5 returning members from Samsung Ozone, and those guys didn't make it out of group stage. So this is a big moment for them, and they are not going to underestimate or underperform in this group stage by their own admission.
Speaking of big moments, the bottom lane. That is really what the focus is, especially for Edward Gaming. Name has to get going. He is the man that will keep the team rolling. And up against Impamata, this is really a big test.
It is a absolutely massive test because that is the lane that if it doesn't go well, every other lane is supposed to lose for EDG based on the scouting report. It's because Dandy is famed for his jungle routes and his gank paths. However, he actually got spotted out by a ward here, so he is vulnerable to a Clear Love collapse or counter gank here. That's what they're trying to set up.
Yeah, Clear Love definitely ready for that one. As we look back to the bottom lane here, we're talking a little bit about Samsung when they were Ozone, mentioning that very overconfident last year, and Imp is quoted being saying that's not going to happen again.
Well, as far as bottom lanes go, Imp and Mata are the most aggressive 2v2 bottom lane pretty much in Korea. And Name isn't actually an incredibly aggressive AD carry. If you compared him with an Uzi from Starhorn Royal Club, he is nowhere near the same level of aggression, but above and beyond in consistency.
Well, going along with how
all the way
EDG
around
generally play, you've got to wonder, you know, with the Lucian in there, how it's going to handle in the late game. Of course, we know Tristan is going to be strong. Yu's going to get out of this one fairly straightforward, just quickly. Defensive balls, meanwhile down the bottom, they're hooking straight in.
Imp could be going down, and nope. Actually, they're going to turn away. Nami took a lot of early damage there, actually, and Imp was totally safe.
It was a completely won trade by White right there. Still a full mana pool on Nami, and able to sustain up. That harass on Name is going to stick.
And we actually saw Dandy there, a jungler to prep his ganks quite a bit, and he even wanted a return on that lane, went all the way around.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised there that he put so much investment into that gank and then to not even get a positive result. EDG has actually done a very good job so far to withstand Dandy's presence so far, especially you in the mid lane, out farming despite about a minute of time being spent by Dandy, both on one side of the mid lane and the other.
speaking of pressure, we do see Koro going back. He's gone for a second Doran's Ring, so not going to be getting in towards that Rod of Ages as quick as I feel he'd like. It is going to delay his build for a while, but a lot of ping wards starting to pop in here. Potentially, we could be seeing EDG maybe making a play for Dragon in a few minutes.
They are a slow team, but they're not afraid to make moves. Definitely able to go for these early game objectives.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions that I had coming into this one was whether EDG could enter into a team fight phase without being terribly far behind. Something that Samsung White does in their victories, especially in Korea, is they absolutely demolish people. Actually, in victories, they average 15 more kills than their opponent, which is the highest mark of every team in Champions, including playoffs. They demolish people when they're getting ahead, and that always starts in the laning phase. So EDG, with a slightly slower style, is doing well to be even in gold here at 6 minutes.
We'll see what they can do to build around Name. Usually EDG's focus throughout these games. Be able to stay on the backside here as they now get a bit of aggression towards their side of the lane. Clearlove not going to get anything out of this just yet. Junglers staying on par with each other as the pink wards come out early. And we're going to see that Haunting Guy still for Rumble.
Honestly, I'm very impressed so far with EDG's vision control here. They're actually the team that's had more pertinent wards up on the map, and it may be restricting Samsung White's ability here. Obviously, Dandy was caught by that ward early on. There were multiple pink wards and sweepers bought early for EDG, and they're setting themselves up for some nice plays here.
Yeah, nice hook. Death sentence onto him. Didn't really come too much of it though, and they're just pressuring them onto the tower right now. Of course, we also saw in that mid lane, Yu was pressuring Pawn. Pawn going back to buy, making his first trip back, comes out with that Tear of the Goddess. And the Necrotron Cloak as well. Yu's going to make his first back as well. Expect to see probably the buildings of an Athenes and Holy Grail on there. There you go, Chalice comes popping in. And we'll see how it builds from there. Big advantage in terms of CS already, though.
And this is huge for Dandy. Level 6 to a level 4 Clearlove right now. He can already start tearing people's faces off, as we heard in the Black Enola patches.
This game actually sets up for a very dangerous dragon fight if Samsung White wants to force it. Rumble, Zillion, Kha'Zix, all at level 6, have much more powerful power spikes than you will get from EDG's side. However, they're still not really forcing those things. Just check out the ward coverage from Samsung White. Nothing in that dragon area. And if I know one thing about watching Korean teams, they almost always ward before they look to set up a play. So as they move wards into dragon is when we can expect them to start respecting it as an actual objective to take right now. That pink ward could be the beginning.
Yeah, that blue buff, it looks like it's going to be taken and given to Yu. We saw Danny making a slight move there. He's also heading up towards the top. Looper under a little bit of pressure here. Koro feeling confident, trying to delay him as long as he can here. Danny going to make his move, but this is very, very low. Koro's going to flash away from this one. Looper's going to keep on chasing. Looks like he should be able to get away if they can lock him up. Pawn comes steaming in. They're going to lock on towards him. This could be the first blood of the World Championships. Danny pounds in, and there it is. Wow. The jungler takes it.
Even though they get the first blood, that is a massive investment, D-Man, right there. EDG, because there's no ward covered as well from Samsung White, you can tell they did not care about that as an objective, and it is basically a trade. First blood be damned.
Dandy gets himself some good gold on that kill, but EDG is picking up a lot, and now to deny blue as well. Not going to hurt Pawn too much, but they are going to go ahead and do the same. Both teams having the inkling to keep themselves in this one.
Ooh, Dandy actually, very important thing right there. Ooh. Accidentally took the red buff, the blue buff with his red.
Oh, FC's very caught out here. Nami trying to do what he can and put up a shield for his teammate with damage. And Name's able to force them off as he grabs the culling just in time.
Wow, great teleport cancel there at the last second by Looper. If he actually went in on that one, he would have been in the whole heap load of trouble because EDG was collapsing very well. Another thing about these teams that they do spectacularly well is make every skirmish into a team fight because they're almost immediately collapsing anytime somebody is in danger.
Koro sneaking through unseen in that top half of the jungle. Will get himself a ward down on the red, but back down the bottom. Explosive damage back and forth. Name taking a big hit. Death sentence lands on towards him. The wave comes riding through along with the Aqua Prison on Name. Taken very low. Has to back away from this one. Mana bounces it. Mana gets it. Fantastic flash there. And great play from the bottom lane.
If Imp and Mana win that 2v2, it is disaster for EDG. Name took so much poke from Imp, using his ultimate preemptively, and then getting hooked was just a bait for EDG to fly in there. Name falling in lane is not expected.
Very, very big. He talks a lot about confidence, and it comes from knowing that he can beat his opponents. Now, that might put a little crutch on that.
He did say in his interview that Imp, of all the players at the World Championship, was the player he wanted to play against the most. Well, he just died.
He certainly did. I was about to say this game is, starting off slow, as you would expect in a tournament play, because this is the very first game of the World Championship. Absolutely nobody wants to lose that game. Of course, we're going to have SKTSM. That's going to be a tense affair coming up after this one, but right now this is the big game. Who could get that #1 seed? Who will they face should they reach the playoffs? Because if you were to look at this group, these are by far the strongest teams in it.
Yep.
And that #1 seed is very important. But things are definitely heating up right now. You can see still very even in gold, despite the first Dragon going to EDG.
I can also tell that EDG has definitely tried to change their play style against White here. Danny jumping in for Koro.
Uh-oh, there's the equalizer going down. Koro's got a red carpet, but he's going to stay for the party on this one. And it's a level 8 to an 8 and a 9, and it's not going to be enough. Koro goes down.
Dandy's patience paying off once again. He waited in that brush for so long, and they're going to start making a camp out of Koro. They are really trying to get Looper fed. If that rumble gets going, there will be no slowing him down.
Good prediction, getting that ward down in the bush. Finds himself Javan the fourth, ready and waiting in the form of Clearlove. Invade from Dandy once again. They know that Clearlove's down the bottom, go straight in, take the jungle.
And here's the big thing that's actually been keeping EDG close in overall gold, but is not normal to EDG's playstyle. Clearlove right now has 33 CS to Dandy's 52. And he actually hasn't even ganked that much. Clearlove has spent so much time walking around the map, trying to scout, placing down wards, and really just trying to keep up with Dandy. He's never made his own plays. And he also hasn't farmed that much. Clearlove typically farms a whole bunch before setting up ganks. He will be really weak in these upcoming team fights based on how much scouting he's tried to do.
Well, we saw EDG switch to sweepers so fast. We see that Samsung White now has all of theirs, but he has just been going around trying to clear things out and not getting anything after, because Samsung White, as Mata has proven before, just is a god of vision towards the mid game.
Currently, you can see just looking across the map, talks about vision. It is very much covered both angles. Both teams all got their coverage. Of course, EDG with a lot of pinks down the bottom. They did have them down there for that Dragon earlier on. One was just swept out by Mana in there. Koro taking a lot of damage. This may be a straight-up one-on-one right now. Looper fancies this one. His ultimate is available if he wants to pop that equalizer down. Koro already used it. Blocks him off perfectly. Koro in trouble. Looper overheated. He doesn't have enough to finish it, and Koro gets away.
By the hair on his chinny chin. That was ridiculous by Looper right there with the cutoff. Maybe if he placed that equalizer a little bit farther back, it would have been fine. Whoa, that's aggressive.
He's going to be walking past the dark path. That's a hit from him. Big damage coming out here if he can actually get that blessing. Oh, the bubble goes down from Mata. They get him in, and it's going to be more trouble. FCZF is taking shots, and Imp's even going to get the reset on the tank to get out. Clearlove's only here to watch.
This game may be getting out of hand right here. Imp jumping over the wall right there with Trist. Obviously, Name hadn't hit his Infinity Edge yet, but you can tell they have just sensed an opening in top lane, in bottom lane, and they're really trying to take some advantage now.
Definitely getting the kills, that's for sure. That gives them that 2,000 gold advantage, and the first tower of the game will go down to Samsung White. Im leaps back away and goes to spend a chunk of that gold. One of the only problems, I would say, is Mata's the one that's getting the kills.
Hey, let's see this again.
Yeah, they thought Imp had gone back to base or just had not returned to base yet, which is one of the reasons FCZF was not in position for that lantern. If he would have been farther back, they could have done that. Pawn gets cut out.
Mid-team fight, the ball goes down. Shockwave's still up as they try to put it in. Oh, it's going to get a miss on that one as Dandy gets himself out quickly with the flash. But the dark passage brings it back in range, and everybody's going to get a piece of that one. The double kill coming in for Unstoppable. And they're looking for Looper.
That is a big turnaround for EDG right there. Not sure exactly how that happened, but getting their first 2 kills on the board nearly 14 minutes into the game. It took them a while, but now they can even this game right up.
One more time on that.
Yeah, I mean, this was just Dandy and Pawn getting a little overzealous right there. Pawn CC locked so he couldn't use his chrono shift. At that point, Samsung White just has to bail. Great presence of mind there by FCZF to finish that one off with a flash.
First tower of the game going down for EDG, starting to turn some of their own pressure back onto Samsung White. You can tell these teams, despite what EDG said, are very much prepared for one another. EDG now in the form of 3-4 members all heading north. Looper's hanging around with the equalizer.
That is a
this
bait.
is a problem because Name and FCZ a tower as well.
It's another one of these dragon trades, though, right there. Samsung White was planning for the dragon. That's where their wards moved. They moved them down to the bottom lane, meaning they fell in the top lane. It exposed Looper. He was overconfident in lane. He's typically a passive laner trying to push his advantage, and he gets baited.
That is what has been amazing me. A not trade-focused Looper going absolutely crazy in these fights. Samsung also, with that last 2 deaths they took, trying to walk into a very dark jungle. Not like them. I think they're getting a little ahead of themselves.
And even though Samsung White is winning this game, that was what most people expected. Everything else in this game has been unexpected. EDG has had very good vision control, sometimes sneaking through the wards of Samsung White. Imp and Mata are destroying Name and FCZF, despite Name being known and touted by many as the best AD carry in the world. They've been getting outplayed 2v2. That's not just Imp, it's because Mata is also the best support in the world by a lot of people's ratings. And it's also crazy here that Pawn is struggling a little bit on Zilean. Orianna has had her way with Zil, and you may become unstoppable this game.
Oh, Dandy spotted out FCZF there. Push in there, the hook does not quite land. Are they going to time that blue buff spawn? Remember, they did take it away from them last time around. I expect it to be coming up. They've come down to the dragon. They realize it is not there. And it is, of course, that blue buff was taken away by Pawn. So EDG a little bit off in their time in there. They tried to push out and make a play. It has left them exposed in the mid lane. We do see Name taking that turret, but look at Samsung White. They have grouped heavily to push them in.
It's incredibly difficult for EDG to get in position to stop this one. They're getting trapped and cut off. This turret's going down.
It has to be going down. They have so much disengage. Even if EDG tries to get into this one, Samsung opens up the map a little bit more. Might start to push that advantage. They have good items coming out in those spikes we were talking about on both sides as the AD carries as well get those items finished.
EDG grouping in the mid lane right now, trying to react a little bit slow, maybe going to try and force down the inner, but you can see the Imp is off in the top lane, and this actually may be EDG's advantage. Instead, they're going to collapse around. Look at them. They're trying to collapse across him, but the moment he's off in the top lane, trying to push that tower down, he's realized the danger now. He's backing off, and I think he should be safe.
This is a period in the game where so much is up in the air with so many turrets down. The vision control is incredible. Dragon's not up right now, so really the freedom that these teams have is unmatched in any portion of the game. One thing that ClearLove is focusing on right now, I think a little bit too much actually, is vision control. He was already a little underfarmed on Jarvan. He went an offensive first item, and he's followed that up with a Sightstone. He's going to be a piece of paper in these team fights. Zillion bombs, Rumble ultimates, and a Trist are going to melt ClearLove and make him ineffective come late game.
And now they leave Imp in the top lane, already quite ahead of pretty much anybody as an AD carry right now, easily to farm up against Koro. Not going to be a problem there. And Dandy, ClearLove cannot catch him without boots. He's got Mobies now, and he just brought the Hex Drinker. Crazy build from him, evolving the wings, and he's ready to get into even more fights with the team. Mata beginning his vision control around the map. See what EDG can do to stop this. 2K gold lead.
Imp still laying in wait, and the rest of Samsung White also moving up there, jumping straight into it, but you can see the Lantern ready and waiting. But 5 members of Samsung White are all making their way up towards his top lane, and EDG are a little slow to react to this. Name still down the bottom. I think this tower is going to go.
This is Samsung White's play, just a better rotation. They even out the turrets and they extend their lead.
With Samsung White being so far ahead, EDG is not going to get there. Play safe in lane, wait for a Baron, win game. It's not going to be that easy.
Against a fully magic penned up Looper on Rumble right now, and a soon-to-be full item Pawn with the Athena's Unholy Grail and his tier. That Zillion has reached a peak in power. If he could just pick up some more cooldown reduction, that's all he would need. It's a very dangerous point in the game for EDG right here.
You're talking about Samsung a little bit in their vision. It looks like they've placed those pink wards a little deeper on both sides. Maybe getting ready to push their advantage a bit more. They do have 2 minutes on Dragon. ClearLove still trying to clear out as many wards. They have so many in such a close position, and it's not really providing them anything just yet.
You know, it seems to me right now, EDG, they want to fight. They're looking for that fight, but Samsung White is just avoiding them, happily to push those objectives. You can see EDG all grouping up the mid, trying to make something out of the jungle of Samsung White. I'm not sure this is the territory they want to be pushing, though.
Yeah, even though EDG is a slower team, when it's go time, they're very willing to go. Samsung White is actually pretty similar in that regard. They're ready to brawl, but mainly they want to either catch EDG without members
or they want to catch EDG over diving, which is something they're definitely prone to doing since they have no answer to Imp's split push. The instant they see Imp split pushing, I'd expect EDG to try and find a fight, but because of the immense vision control from White, that is really hard to do. Dragon's up in 1 minute, and the vision battle has already begun.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot of wards falling left and right. Pawn taking a lot of damage in the mid lane. Name and the rest of EDG collapsing in towards that middle turret, and that inner will go down. You can see just off of the side, though, Samsung White ready to come in from the side. Are they going to be able to react? Are they going to go for it? Because EDG, they can keep pushing.
Right now, EDG has the ward control in the places that matter, but White is just doing their best to counter that with the split push, trying to take them away from their points of power.
Fast static shiv onto Imp allows him to get here. He should be able to take that down with the next wave to come, but he is gonna have a party here soon. Three's definitely gonna be a crowd on this one, and it looks like he will get a bit of help from Looper and the rest of the team to cut off that advantage.
Catch! That Aqua Prism was crucial, but the Lantern followed through. EDG get out of dodge, and that was quick reactions. Dragon, though, is about to spawn in 10 seconds, and that will give Samsung White the advantage.
Equalizer down, but also half of Yu's health bar. White is still respecting that play a fair bit, though. They don't actually know that everyone on EDG is recalled. They need to get that Dragon down quickly. Otherwise, a bunch of full health EDG members will come back without the ultimates of Samsung White. It's smart of them to go now.
Trying to make that full team play down onto Imp, and it cost him the Dragon. Samsung White able to see what was happening with all the vision they still had up in the jungle. Somehow, after EDG clearing everything out to the max. 2 to 3 Dragons in the game, so EDG has been able to get back somewhat. But I don't know if it's going to be enough right now. That middle turret definitely helps quite a bit, though.
So the battle for wards is clearly about to begin. Obviously, there's a lot cleared out in that last moment. Baron is a potential, but not just yet. It's more a case of getting some vision down. So let's start taking a little bit of stock over the items that maybe they're picking out. You can see a whole bunch of pink wards being picked up by EDG, and they're starting to just slightly popping towards them second items. One is the big power spike, because I can see Imp has completed that static shift and Infinity Edge. He's going to start becoming a beastly Tristana, so EDG, they need to start quickening the pace up here.
Imp has hit his power spike. The first mid laner to hit death cap could potentially equalize that power spike. They're both working towards it. Right now, despite the 3,000 gold difference, the game is actually in a fairly close place. It is definitely in White's favor fairly substantially, though, because of the Trist. Because Clear Love is unable to get gold to create tank items, and because Coral doesn't have armor yet, EDG would need a catch, but they just kind of got caught.
Yeah, throwing in everything here. Whoa, Pawn's right in the middle of it, tries to slow it down to keep it. The fight begins, and EDG is trying to get out of this one. Coral gets jumped on, but the slow is wearing off, and he's going to try to flash over the wall with the rest of his team, but they will continue with the culling.
Coral in all sorts of trouble. The shockwave pulls into Looper. Looper taken low, but so is EDG. They're backing out. Now they're going to run back on towards him. MCZF's going to get picked off. It's a double for him. Could it be a triple? Yes, it will. And that is a big, big turnaround. Samsung White, they can turn and burn for Baron.
Just an absolutely pristine team fight there from Samsung White. They called out the bait from EDG. They poked them in the Baron pit. They slowed them down as they were trying to retreat, and they forced them into a bad play. Now they're trying Baron, but it's only 2 defenders from EDG. Imp goes in.
Whoa, that's going to be big. They get the shot back from the Buster. Imp wants to go down on this one, and he does. They pick up the double kill, 1 for each, and Imp's going to jump in to see if he can clean up this mid wave and get that mid turret down as well. They are moving as a perfect team right now. Everything's happening in their favor, and people are getting away with slivers of health.
The game just completely broke wide open. Samsung White is now dominating. They had the Infinity Edge. There was no death caps answered on the other side. The fear of Clear Love and Coral being too far behind was absolutely valid right there. Imp shredded through them. The Zillion power spike here, level 13 with a lot of spells, just everything going Samsung White's way. Obviously, the tidal wave catching 3 was absolutely crucial right there, and they just couldn't run through Looper. He was going to hit him with the Flame Spitter, so they had to split up. Here, EDG in classic fashion tries for a turn, but you can see they're lacking tank stats, basically, when they jump in. Coral was already low, no armor. Clear Love really doesn't do anything. He locked in Kha'Zix in for half a second, and that's the Imp that they've been trying to keep down this whole game. When you lose the bottom lane and you have Name on your team, EDG doesn't have really too many ways of winning the game back in that sense.
There's a big, big advantage now for Samsung White, proving that #1 seed that they currently hold in everybody's perspective, other than the fact that they didn't qualify as it. They are the #2 from Korea, which is a little scary in the rest of the Western world's eyes, I think, and maybe even China's, because this is their #1 seed falling down to Samsung White. But there's a potential for coming back, and Pawn completely caught out of position. I don't think the rest of his team are going to collapse, but let's see what advantage they take from this. They know that the rest of EDG are all down there, and immediately Imp goes top.
There's no answer for Imp whatsoever. Look at his items right now. He doesn't even need a Last Whisper because there's no armor being built up by EDG. They do not have the gold to do so.
Far and ahead of the game right now. Samsung White looking to take this one home. We mentioned a little bit that EDG may not have looked at them so much during practice, but still, this is a dominating performance we're seeing from White.
Solid play. Clearly chasing the wolf. Not quite able to pick that one up like he'd wish to. So
everything's giving him trouble.
Where are they going to go from here? I mean, they basically had to sit back and hope that Samsung White now may have given a mistake, because it really did crack the game wide open. They've got an 8,000 gold advantage, as you mentioned. Imp, he's an absolute monster right now. You can see he's got a clear 2,500 gold advantage over Name, which in itself, Tristana versus Lucian, is a gigantic problem.
Yeah, and the fact that he's level 15, in small thanks to Zillion's passive, but mainly because he's been split pushing so much, just makes the range discrepancy even greater between Trist and Lucian. This has been a very well-played game by Samsung White. EDG definitely threw a few curveballs at them, putting a lot more emphasis into early game vision control, having a nice bait in the top lane for Coral that one time, but outside of that, it's really been a Samsung White controlled game.
EDG not forgetting to keep the wards up. Pinks across the inventories with the double sight stone as they continue to try and stop the snowball that Samsung White has here. Command Shockwave pulls in Mata. He's just going to heal that one off, but ult down for... could have been a kill.
And not quite farmed enough. He would have needed to zero Mata out with that one to make a big impact. Now they're just down Shockwave and just hemorrhaging objectives left and right.
So Dandy stealing away the blue buff, the Prince of Thieves, as he's nicknamed by Monty and Doa. And as you see, the vote, of course, very much in favor of Samsung White right now. It's actually less, though, because it was an 80% swing to begin with. Now it's only 67%. EDG putting up a good impression at the start, and obviously they do face each other again. There's a lot to take from this one. Koro caught out. Teleport is not going to get interrupted. Does manage to get back to base.
I mean, that's another one upon actually.
Oh man, he's going to go down, but the team has time to get over there. Looper may throw down the ultimate for the walkout. It's actually down already past that, and it looks like Pawn gets himself enough speed up, dodges the dissonance, but the clockwork does wind up nicely, and he goes down. Looper could be in trouble, but the rest of the team is collapsing in mid lane.
Flash on towards him. He can see, as you mentioned, the team collapsing in towards him. He tries to turn it back on towards you. He gets the kill, turns around in a 3v1. A simple turnaround kill. It's great for him. Imp goes aggressive, actually leaps across to the side. Not sure where he's planning to avoid, dodging out of the death sentence there. Dandy comes around the side, and still Samsung White, despite losing 2 members, keep the pressure on EDG.
That right there is one of the reasons they picked Rumble. He has so much latent damage. Even in a 1v3, he could turn that kill right around onto you. Still a pretty good move there by EDG. They cannot contest this dragon, but they're trying their best to survive right now.
Very great play, and an interesting orb situation coming out in Samsung White's inventory here with the 2 scrying orbs. They want to be seeing everything.
Yeah, they just want to make sure nothing gets surprised on them. They know that EDG likes to group up as 5, so if they catch one, they usually end up catching a whole heap of players behind them. To just kind of go back to the start of the game, though, and all the hype around Samsung White, the player that stood out the most here was the duo lane of Mata and Imp. I would say Dandy was, even though he's a spectacular player, not particularly spectacular this game. That bottom lane performance against the cream of the crop from EDG and China, being able to get all those kills, it's been Imp and Mata this game taken over.
It's hard to not let that happen. You give Mata Nami, you have sustain for Imp in that lane, and they want to go hard the whole time. We saw Nami and FCZF go hard a little bit in the beginning, but after that, they've kind of just fallen behind.
Yeah, there's been domination, and if one team knows basically how to control a lead, it is Samsung White. They've been in this situation many, many times. They're not going too aggressive, they're not going crazy. They had the Baron buff, but they didn't overly commit on anything there. It has happened to them in the past, and this time they are playing it safe. Looper, is he going to get caught out? Death sentence will land, and the rest of EDG collapse.
That's a lot of damage they're missing from the fight. He threw the equalizer out as well, but you see how far EDG is behind. They go to clear more out. They don't go to take anything off of this.
Hey, quite honestly, that was just a sloppy play by Looper. They did not have ward coverage, and it was a nice catch by FCZF. Obviously, though, Samsung White has never put all their whatever's in one basket. You're going to always have a backup plan here, and Imp's that backup plan.
And I've got to be honest, if Koro comes down here, I don't think he can do anything with him. And he's just realized he was making a direct
He needs help.
And then he thought, nope, I can't handle this Tristana on my own. Name and Klilov all having to back off, but he's ripping the hell out of that tower. And on his own, single-handedly blows Koro backwards and says, thank you very much, your tower's gone.
Imp is playing with that lead about the best he could right there, completely knowing his limits, doesn't take a lick of damage there, finishes off an inhibitor turret, and now, because they pulled so many defenses down bottom, it gives them time to create vision around the Baron pit. All 3 sweepers just used, pink wards placed as well.
You know, this is a man that's clearly looking for tears. He tasted them earlier on, of course, against Piglet, who sadly is no longer on SK Telecom. Maybe he's looking if he can see if he gets them from Name. I don't know. This guy is maybe a little bit sadistic. Who knows? But it is Samsung White setting up, EDG looking for that fight, and they may well find it.
Well, so far been working out for Imp, known to be not as mechanically and strategically sound in fights, but everything's been 1v1 for him today, and it's coming out rainbows.
Samsung White has 2 different ways of winning this game that could easily work out. They're choosing to do the split push strategy here with Imp while trying to keep Baron control with the rest of the team, knowing there's no one who can deal with Imp. They also would win a 5v5 team fight pretty easily. So I'm surprised they actually haven't just grouped up around Baron and tried to recreate the fight that blew the game open in the first place, because they weren't nearly as far ahead then as they are now.
Lots of new things coming into the inventories being drank up. Pawn puts out an elixir there, which means they want that extra bit of power for what else is about to happen next and solidify that win. With the inhibitor open in the bottom, Koro's forced to stay down there right now, but the teleport is available. But Samsung White wants this. Prepping the fights, they're gonna get ready for the Baron.
It maybe shows just a little bit of respect that Samsung White have for EDG, despite the fact they are 10,000 gold ahead. They're not pushing a gigantic advantage. They know that obviously with an Orianna there, it's pretty easy to clear. You've got the Cullen, you can wipe out them waves. Instead, they are drawing them into the Baron, which honestly they could take with ease.
Yeah, and to EDG's credit, they have delayed Samsung White's execution on multiple occasions. The level of catches they've had is pretty great. This looks bad, though.
Flag and drag out, but he's slowed on this one. He does get the shield, so they know the rest of the team is close. Dandy looking to go in, but he backs off.
That's Jungler down, though. They flashed into the F1.
They to get away from the shockwave just about. That does mean it is a big ultimate down, and Samsung White, they know they can go for it. Klilov is not in the picture. He is very low. If he comes sliding in, you can see he's charging for the bait.
If they care for their lives, they don't go in here.
There goes the ultimate. Nami's wave is out, and they're forced to back up. Imp jumps into the fight. Koro's trying to do what he can with Maelstrom up, dodging all that damage, but it's going to be too much. The team leaves him for dead.
They're just trying to do as much damage as possible so Samsung White can hopefully not finish this Baron, but Imp is just unstoppable. He hasn't taken a single hair of damage, and he'll go wherever he wants.
He's going straight for it. Klilov forced away once again. Name's culling is up in a moment, but they did delay the Baron. Job done for EDG. They just need to sit back and wait a little bit longer. Imp sees a gigantic wave in the bottom.
What a gutsy team right there to just go in again and again. Every time someone will get knocked out in the fight, they hold off with 4. The fact they only suffered 1 casualty is remarkable. And now White has to leave for wave management, again delaying the game for EDG.
How long can they do this? Imp is gigantic, solo pushing lanes by himself.
I'm going to guess not much longer because things are getting a little bit crazy here. Looper's incredibly strong. If they can make a super late game, you'd think the Zillion would fall off a little bit, but it's paired with a Trist, and the front line, despite having a Maokai, will still fall to an incredibly fed Trist. EDG is delaying here. They're hoping to catch a more ridiculous fight.
Speaking of catching someone out, we know this has happened in the past, and while he did say it, I'm talking about Imp here, says cockiness will not creep back into his game. It has done. He's a 5-0-4, massively fed Tristana. If he was to singly get caught out, he's been playing it risky so far, That could be a big turning point for EDG.
He would have to play
a massive damage dealer.
Remarkably risky, though, because they have the Zillion as the safety net right here. They're doing this on top of Ward, but they're doing it so quickly that I don't know if EDG can make it in. They're going to go for it, though.
Name's got a pretty good item build to start shredding in here. The culling goes out to start. Koro again in the front, but they were not able to stall it this time, and the fight continues just below Baron.
They got him down. They got him down. That is a big turnaround, but can they have the damage back on this one? Pawn is still alive. They need to get that mid laner down. Uses the ultimate on himself. He's going to pop back up in a second. Danny jumps away. Pawn is still alive. That is EDG picking up 3 kills. 2 members incredibly low. EDG, despite losing Baron, turned that fight around, and that is exactly what we said. If they can catch him out, they can turn the fight.
What a spectacular team fight right there by EDG. Down 10,000 gold and a Baron buff, and they can get this.
One more time.
How did this happen? First off, you never see White do Baron on top of a ward. That's the first unexpected thing. Then, Rumble gets almost nothing. Imp loses his mind, gets crushed in CC, and dropped before the Zillion can land. Exactly the scenario we thought could never happen. They then catch Looper in Zhonya's. The fact that he was able to escape with a sliver of health is a bit of a miracle. That was nearly a clear ace. Baron is gone from 3 people. It's only on Dandy and Looper, and EDG shows they will not ever go down without many fights.
Looks like we got a lot of people still holding their breath because EDG just made a huge play. Only, I believe, Looper and one other comes out of Baron with that. Dandy here comes out of Baron with that one. Where can they use it? There's still, yes, a huge push to come out from Imp. That mistake probably won't be made
I can't believe that happened. The one thing that could spell a turnaround for White, and he rocket jumps in with no backup when Zillion's not in range. That is the definition of what he said he wasn't going to do. That was complete overconfidence right there by Imp, and a great capitalization by EDG.
Well, White don't look like they want to hang around this time. They're making the play. They're going to push down towards that exposed inhibitor, and EDG are not in position to deal with this one if they were to go fast for it. They see the Rumble, they see Looper making that move, so they are going to react. They are going to be in position. Name, he's got big off that last fight.
Huge.
He's got the items. And this actually will be much closer now for Samsung White.
Imp also has a lot of items, and Samsung White needs to be very careful not to give in to the chaos. EDG is one team, they're used to playing against a lot of teams that will make judgment calls with limited vision control. Right now, White is trying to set up a retreat. They're trying to control the initiation. They're going to ward up and try and play as a cohesive unit. If they don't do that, they will get drawn into the chaos where EDG thrives.
Well, currently, they have to delay. Imp's flash not available. Pawns is, of course, if that shockwave were to catch on him. If he didn't jump at the exact moment, it would be curtains. They are going to back away. And Samsung White, again, playing very respectfully on EDG. There's a big wave pushing on the top. We can see Looper's going to go deal with that one. And this is just buying a little bit more time for EDG, and they're happy to wait with this one out. Of course, the Orianna's just going to get stronger and stronger. And this team fight, whenever it happens, will be a massive deal because these teams are stacking up. We're hitting the 60K mark, so suddenly the gap, despite being, what, 10,000, is becoming a less and less of a problem for both teams. EDG, they have worked their way back into this game off that single mistake, and it could make Samsung White pay.
They got just enough catches to delay right there, and they honestly forced Samsung White into a very impatient decision. Like I said, obviously, they were able to secure the Baron, but doing it on top of a site ward when they have such pink ward control and so many sweepers is really out of character. So you can definitely see a little bit of fear or second guessing coming in from Samsung White here. However, that is 6 full items on Imp.
Yeah.
And when Pawn did resurrect himself in that fight, you saw he came back with full health.
Yep.
So Zillion has enough AP that is basically 2 Imps if they play these fights properly.
Very, very big here for Samsung White to make this next one even bigger for EDG to come out on the play. Looking at Nami mostly as saying that his items right now aren't looking at much armor on the side of Samsung White. The most is on Looper, so if he can stay alive, if he can position and be the carry that EDG needs for these fights, it could definitely be a different story.
Uh-oh, Koro is in trouble. He's going to get collapsed on. The rest of his team are coming to help, but they are going to be too late. The question is, can he hang on long enough? Samsung White coming around the side. EDG coming down the pole, and the left one's there. An EDG rescue crew manages to survive and get him away.
But for how long? What did that cost? No real cooldowns were used for Samsung White. Koro was a little bit out of the fight. He has to recall, and they also have a bad path back to their inhibitor. This is Samsung White using half of a catch to try and get an inhibitor.
Putting on a bit of a stranglehold here. Should be able to take this one down. Wards all over the place as well.
Clear Love is thinking about a flank from behind. There's not sufficient ward control for White right now. Here comes Jarvan.
Oh, Matla's going to get caught now. Clear Love goes in. The wave will pull them, but the shockwave is strong. They're going to catch on towards everybody low. Koro, big, in between the team. They all back away. Lupa having to use that. Zonya's very, very low, and they're going to continue piling in.
Every summoner blown by this point. It's going to be a big shutdown there as Imp gets a kill. He goes down after in the retribution kill, coming from Unstoppable, and the fight has not ended yet. A bubble coming in, and they're going to keep going on to Koro. Finally taking down the tree. They give it a few more cuts, and the inhibitor is in their eyes.
You, the only man standing. Can he keep them away? Bay here, I'm not too sure he can. Pawn pushes in towards him, doesn't quite catch on. The death sentence does though, and he's going to get caught out once again. His ultimate backup just in time. You taken solo. Pawn comes back to life. The inhibitor finally goes down. Samsung White, they're still pushing.
Absolute chaos. They're trying to go through, and they have no AD carry, but they do have a 4-2 advantage.
40-minute game right now, 16-11 on the Nexus turrets. You up. You does not have his ultimate for a few more seconds, but Samsung White sees that window. They're out. A little too chaotic.
What a way to open the World Championships. That fight was Samsung White entering into the chaos. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. They get flanked at the start of it. Imp goes absolutely crazy, but luckily he took Name out with him when he fell down. If that didn't happen, if he wasn't able to land that counter damage, White would have been aced here. It's crazy to think because they won that fight so well. So obviously, Shockwave was a little bit lackluster there. They tried the flank initiation, and because Clear Love was still underfarmed, he wasn't able to pull much up. But here with Imp, look at how on the same page everyone from EDG is in this team fight. However, Samsung White had the same idea. As soon as you see the AD carry, you're going to go for it. Because they did that nice collapse, they were able to secure this one, and then it was just about keeping the team fight going so Zillion could get an ultimate back up again, and that's ultimately how they took out the inhibitor.
And D-Man, like you said, definitely waiting for Imp's flash. You can see it was blown in that fight, keeping him safe and in the right positions. Now 6-2 and 7, the full build is out for him.
There are 2 scrying orbs on Samsung White right now. And there's one of them.
Peekaboo. Oh, Pawn actually pushing in, gets the bomb down. Thank you very much. Back away from this one. So, Super Minions shoving down the bottom lane. EDG, you have a decision to make. Do you fight the Baron, or do you let the Super Minions take your nemesis?
They have to go immediately. Otherwise, they're done for. They send Maokai back. He's not very fast at clearing those. They may yet lose an inhibitor turret because he can't clear these minions away. Samsung White holds all the cards right now.
Doing what he can, slamming the ground. Tree's trying to make noise. Nobody's there to hear it. The turret does get saved, though. He does hold it, and the Baron begins. But this is where EDG has come up big. Can they stop it again? Samsung already reconsidering.
Yeah, teleport was available, don't forget, for Koro, so he does hold on, and this is still very risky play by EDG.
Every time that minion wave hits the turret, it has to be cleared again by Koro. He bought about 30 to 40 seconds when he cleared that last wave, and it's surprisingly, White didn't really take much off of it. They are being a little cautious after what happened last time, and Koro has done a good enough job pushing that wave out that the teleport threat is very real, and White is not willing to do another Baron with 5v5.
One of the things we talked about as we watched White is the incredible objective control early. And they're still controlling that, but not as much, it seems, as they want to. Back and forth. Back and forth.
Do not do this, EDG. They're thinking about going to Baron, but White is way ahead of the game right now. There's no defense. This could be Inhibitor 2.
That's Inhibitor 2 gone. There's no way they can react to this one quick enough. That's a simple tower being just destroyed by him.
They will again try a flank, though. Watch Clear Love. He's trying to come in on Jarvan. He seems very far ahead of the team right now.
Trying to get that Frost Queen out, does not hit it. Looper throws down the red carpet for the team. Koro's in again. The dive buddies go in, and they actually change spots this time. Clear Love's in all by himself, and Imp has free shots as they take down Koro. He jumps in. It's going to be a double kill. It doesn't look like there'll be any more, but it's eyes on the Nexus, and the triple kill dodge. The Quadra possibly on the fountain. He won't go as far, and they're going to go for the Nexus.
That's all they need. Right there. It was such a great catch. They finished off you before he could shockwave, and finally, White takes him down.
Beautiful game by Samsung White. showing a bit of weakness in the mid game as they got, I wouldn't say weakness, but over cocky in their strength, which hurt them a little bit. Name on the screen, trying to be a carry for his team, but could not come out here in the first game of groups. He played fantastic, however, throughout the game.
But what a fantastic opener we've had
Oh my
already,
gosh.
showing the strengths of both teams. And honestly, it was just hinged on just a couple of team fights that could have swung either way. As you mentioned, if Name had not gone down in that bottom fight, absolutely that would have gone EDG's way. And who knows where that game could have gone. Questionable decisions maybe from Samsung White, a little bit of nerves creeping into game one, of course. Now that one's out of the way. That's the big, strong game they had to deal with. Can they sweep the group?
It seems like they're poised to sweep this group. This is their toughest challenge. However, some small weaknesses are rising in Samsung White, and I think a little bit of it was seen in that game. They do have a slight issue closing games. That's one of the big reasons they can never seem to defeat their sister team Samsung Blue, because even if they can get an early lead, sometimes they have trouble making decisions late in the game. That's the main reason that game stretched for so long. EDG was pushing them into uncomfortable situations, and yeah, like you said, a couple of team fights switched the wrong way, and we have ourselves a massive comeback and a completely different story right now.
Wavering back and forth on that Baron, but the man right there, these two, I should say, the early game duo lane from Imp and Mata coming out extravagant.
Well, I think Mata will have some words with Imp, honestly, because, you know, it was all about that one jump, that one crazy leap. And, you know, he was at 5.05, I believe, at the time when leaping in, a little bit overconfident. And this is something they've talked about coming into this World Championships. They may need to get him in check for the next match.
A little bit overconfident is a pretty big understatement right there. That was absolute insanity, but it's because he overperformed expectations so heavily at the start of the game, and ultimately it did not decide the game against them. Name was able to get back in the game because of that mistake, but the way they were able to shut him down and make the game really all about you and maybe ClearLove trying to find the right fights is exactly what White wanted to do.
EDG didn't get much out of the early game, but a lot of wards swept, and we saw how far behind ClearLove was throughout the game, and then trying to initiate, and it was very off with him and Koro. One would try to get back out, and Koro would be the guy diving in, and it just didn't seem to work out in the fights the way they wanted.
And something that none of us really expected coming into this match was the simple fact that Rumble was played in the top lane by Lupa. That caught all of us off guard with our stats.
Yeah, right off the bat, they've been preparing to, obviously. Samsung White wants to win this group.
Absolutely. So right now, we're actually going to throw it over to the guys at the analyst desk for a breakdown on Samsung White's win.
Thank you very much, guys. And right at the end of the conversation, they're bringing up the picks and bans. Lupa playing Rumble, seeing the Zillion, seeing the Nami coming out. Samsung White surprising us a little bit in picks and bans, but they made it work at the end of the game. Monty, what's your take?
Well, Rumble was a pick that we saw late in the regionals in Korea from SK Telecom, and it was a game that they beat Najin White Shield with in the finals. And coming into these picks and bans, we really are looking at two very quintessential team compositions for both of these teams. We've got that hyper tank up in the top lane for EDG, that emphasis on AoE and team fighting with the Jarvan in the jungle, and then on the other side of the coin, we have actually an extremely difficult composition to play from Samsung White, because we're dealing with a comp that requires a massive early game lead. Rumble's the champion that you have a lot of early dragon control over, and EDG played well against it. In fact, they kind of baited them into the pit and then rushed mid lane, taking towers, avoiding the Rumble ult whenever possible in the early game. Fortunately, there was a bad fight in the jungle right there. But going into the late game, if you have this composition that we see Samsung White running, you need that large lead. You need that big buffer. And not only that, but you need pretty much perfect team fighting because you're very squishy. You're super reliant on the Zillion pick to get the ult off in order to get the resets rolling with Tristana and Kha'Zix. So requires good Zhonya's use from the Rumble as well. And of course, you know, if we look at the pick and ban phase, early Zillion pick, it's a flex pick, although typically White plays it in mid, and then they have that counter pick on support with the Nami.
Especially given how the pick and ban phase was going, it was pretty telegraphed that Zillion was going to end up going mid lane because they have the Rumble that they definitely want to match against Maokai. But then Zillion Tristana could absolutely just lose against Lucian Thresh, so they needed Nami as a kind of pick support, and it worked for them.
But didn't you feel that Tristana Nami should also lose to Lucian Thresh? What was your take on the head-to-head matchup and how that played out?
Yeah, that's something I really want to point out. How EDG started basically at their bot lane side with their jungler, which set their bout in even farther behind. So they had to leash, and then they played against Imp and Mata, who didn't leash with Tristana and Nami. What ended up happening was the early levels are so crucial in this matchup. They allowed Tristana to just push early and sustain up and just whittle them down, as well as Thresh started with a ward and 2 potions. So every single point of that matchup where Thresh and Lucian could just abuse Nami Tristana was just not allowed to by EDG. And at the same time, those weird jungle starts influence the jungle as well.
And you speak about the bot lane matchup. The matchup of Kha'Zix versus Jarvan with the Zillion passive makes it even more volatile. And we saw Jarvan struggle to get early ganks, and he fell behind in farm, while Kha'Zix was able to pick up some of the scraps from the mid lane. He built up a CS lead and then eventually managed to camp top lane. In another volatile matchup, when you have Rumble, a champion that if he gets really far ahead of whatever opponent he's against, he's going to be able to do just massive amounts of damage. And these champions are so reliant in their team comp that when you get them really far ahead and shut down the main tank for EDG, then the team fights has become that much easier.
I want to get back to that bottom lane point, though, Carpo was talking about a little bit, because even though they did start out with the ward, they started out with the leash, by the 3rd or 4th wave, we were equal CS. And I know you're talking about the fact that Lucian should be ahead in CS, and it should be a winning matchup, not an equal one. But the point is, we got to a point where the matchup was at least equal, which is reasonable.
But it's too late.
If
It's
sure, but
purely opportunity cost. You should already be so far ahead in that match.
I know what you're talking about being ahead. What I'm going to talk about, though, is the fact that they had an equal lane, and I talked about it in the previous show. What if Name chokes internationally? Name died in 2v2s in a winning lane matchup multiple times, and that is very unforgivable for EDG.
I don't think these lanes are equal, though. You got Zillion passive. Like, that, it makes a huge... You're always going to not get level 2 first. Level 3
I like that
first.
point. Let's move on. 1 second. I like the point. Also, Mata was a massive reason for that when he picked up the first kill. Let's move on out of the laning phase. Strategically, Samsung White just seemed to have a step ahead of EDG, despite some misplays in team fights. Freak, explain one of the strategic plays that you particularly liked.
Okay, so let's pull up the replay, and we're going to start out with it pause for a little bit. This is basically one of the big reasons Samsung White is a better team than Edward Gaming. So what you see right here is the fact that Name has a free road to split push the bottom lane. Now, we had seen Imp do this with Impunity later on and get down to an inhibitor turret. There's enough wards to see Dandy if you watch that minimap. Name can split push here completely safely. Instead, he's going to give this up. Samsung White dictates and goes mid lane, and Edward Gaming the entire time is playing second fiddle and trying to play follow-up here. So roll the clip out. We're going to run it fairly fast overall just to watch the map movements, but Samsung White is actually first here. The mid laner Orianna is actually killing Wraith instead of showing up to this turret, and so this goes down for free. And this is, again, kind of silly. So finally the Lucian makes his way in, but Imp's already hitting top lane. Imp is already ready to split push the top lane, push a wave in. EDG just now sees it, just now clears the wards, and so Imp says, oh, now they're coming top lane. I can leave very easily. Is actually able to create the pressure on these turrets. And at the very end of that clip, actually what happens is you've got the Maokai trying to hold the top lane against this Tristana push, and Rumble's already getting the wave bottom. Tristana had already cleared the wave top. They've already killed the turret mid. So we actually had SSW take all 3 lanes, something useful in all 3 lanes, and Edward was like, oh shoot, go mid, oh shoot, go top, and they're just behind the entire time.
Reactionary.
And a big part of that, too, is the itemization that we saw in Tristana. If we notice, it went BF Sword into Static Shiv so they could get as much lane pressure early. This is a team with Rumble and with this specific composition, with the disengage from Nami, that is very concerned about taking early objectives, and they don't need Infinity Edge crits. They're not looking for those early team fights. They're there to push the waves, to have the split push, and if necessary, group around the Rumble ult a turret, and just knock the turret down as fast as possible to get that global gold lead.
Let me just quickly interject and change the topic a little bit later. We've seen a big team fight following this where Samsung White delay aced Edward Gaming, got themselves a Baron. Then they sort of fiddled about for a while. A few misplays from Imp getting caught out, stalled the game out maybe a little longer than it needed to. Do we feel that Edward Gaming, if they had made slightly better decisions in the early game, maybe a different AD carrier, Cogmore, something that could scale more, could they have done better against Samsung White? Because there were some chinks in the Samsung White armor. Freak, I see you excited.
So I'm really excited about this because I looked at the post-game screen. Name had the highest damage to champions in the game. He was a 4-4-3 Lucian. We had a 9-2-7 Tristana. We had a big Rumble. Name still found a way to deal more damage than every other player in the game. So he lost, there's so many things going against him, yet he still managed to do more damage. So this is a very big factor that if EDG can get out of the early game, something they've even struggled with in China itself, let alone internationally, then they're going to look better. But it's been a repeated road of the early game going weak.
Some final thoughts from Crumbs.
I think the biggest factor was the jungle matchup. Like, Jarvan fell so far behind, and he ended up with just a welfare build while you have Kha'Zix. He's going full damage. Rumble got so far ahead, and Jarvan just not able to do anything. Jarvan is all in. Either you win or you lose really hard.
Just the last point yet again about the early game. I agree with Freak. If you play around your AD carry, don't let him leash in a winning matchup, and then the other opposite side doesn't leash, and then all your advantage you literally throw away already, and you play from behind level 1. Especially when you have a tank top, just leave that tank alone. Even late game, he can just flash in and Twisted Advance, and that's enough. That's what Maokai needs to do. If your AD carry is so good at dealing damage in teamfights, then that should be enough. But why would you leash and then just screw it over in bot lane?
Big questions that Edward Gaming will need to answer. You can tell that we're particularly excited. Anyways, you guys at home, you've been sharing photos with us about how you and your friends do Worlds. So let's actually take a look at some of those very quickly. First up from @GoodVibesAU from Australia Down Under. Hype Down Under, this is how we Worlds. Definitely looking pretty cool. Like your forehead, bro. Next should be some familiar faces from LCS fans. That's Fnatic's coach Aranea dropping in on Alliance, stealing them strats. And he says, since I saw so many World selfies, this is the Alliance selfie. Hashtag keep smiling, maybe?
Hashtag keep smiling.
Finally, we have a tweet from Jasm who says, this is how I Worlds in medical school. Let's just hope the future doctor is paying attention. I sincerely hope so, for your patient's sake. Thank you guys for sending those in. Remember to tweet your pictures to us on how you Worlds at LOL Esports, LOL Esports. Use the hashtag Worlds. And if you see big plays, World's big place. We're only just getting warmed up. After a quick break, we'll head back onto the Rift for an LCS matchup between North America's Team Solo Mid and Europe's SK Gaming. Guys, don't go anywhere. As it turns out, we're going to take a quick look at TSM preparing for their match. You can see we'll transition over to SK Gaming in a moment or two. They've got a tough challenge ahead of them playing with that substitute. All right.